A very good day to all. In this video, we are going to see about heavy metal contamination on human health. So everyone knows that the contamination is the major concern for the world, and researchers, scientists, even government regulatory bodies are trying to reduce the contamination that is being released by the industries, and the industry is also trying to reduce the contamination, not only because of regulatory bodies but also due to the economic behind that. Okay, so in this sector, we are in this video, in this presentation, we are going to see how it is going, thus what are the sources, how it is being converted, how it is being entered into human body, and what are all the methods to reduce it, to reduce the contamination in the environment. Okay. Here we go with the first slide. So, so every industries that is contributing to the economic development, okay, for any country, that's been released, that particular industry released some amount of contamination into the environment. If you take any manufacturing sector, or if you take any startup, it will directly or indirectly uh, produce some contamination. But major contamination is a heavy metal because it is majorly a carcinogenic. So that's why heavy metal is becoming a major concern in the world right now. Okay, so what are the major heavy metals, important heavy metals that is being released into the environment are lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, chromium, copper, iron. These are all some major heavy metals. So comparing all these heavy metals, okay, these major heavy metals, lead, mercury, arsenic, chromium are very toxic. Okay, so when it is being allowed into the environment after a particular limit, permissible limit, it will affect the human body as well as the environment. Okay, so that needs to be reduced, and these are all the sources of heavy metal contamination. So where are all which industries are majorly contributing for the heavy metal contamination in the environment? So that is, for example, if you take a fertilizer industry, not only that is from agricultural to space industry, if you take. So from agricultural to space industries, heavy metal contamination is a major one. So first one is a fertilizer and pesticides, that is being agricultural industry. Okay. After that you go for a metal plating. So without fertilizer, agricultural is pretty impossible in this world right now. Okay. So organic fertilizer is something different. But when you are going for inorganic fertilizer, it is being used by the whole earth. Around or 85% of people in the world are using inorganic fertilizers or fertilizers that is being produced from chemicals. Okay, so then we go for the metal plating and finishing operations. Again, if we can relate the particular industry, that particular agricultural sector with the metal plating and finishing operations. That is, tractors are being produced and other major equipments, agricultural related equipments also being produced. Then waste from battery industries. So if you take a tractor, it needs to be run by a diesel. Usually it's run by a diesel. Whatever the diesel there is, there needs to be a battery. Okay, so for producing battery also there may be chances of production of metal contamination. So in the center I have given sources of lead in the environment. Just leave it out because sources of lead, not only the sources of lead, other major contaminations also happening these things, and soil waste, exhaust from automobiles, additives in gasoline and pigment. If you take petrol or diesel, kerosene, all these three products are differ in color. So there needs to be some pigments are being added into the liquid. Okay. So by adding the liquid or producing the liquid also causes some contamination. Factory chimneys, without any chimneys, not without chimneys, many major industries won't run because the amount of toxic gases that is being produced in the industry needs to be released. So that's why chimneys are very high, and the toxic gases are being released into the chimneys. And the smelting of ores. So everything related to heavy metal contamination in the world right now. And routes of exposure. So how these enter into human body is the major thing that we needed to understand. So it is being only through three things. One is a contact, ingestion, and inhalation. If you take around 20 or 30 years back, the chromium industry, tannery industry, people used to mix the tannery tannery effluent with the bare hand. Okay, it causes them a cancer after a particular for a prolonged period of contact. Okay, so they didn't even drink those water, and they didn't inhale those because they wear masks, but they use as a bare hand. So what happens to them? It causes them a cancer. So the same goes for the ingestion. Uh, we have already seen in agricultural sector, fertilizer is being produced by the heavy metals. Okay, so it causes also heavy metal contamination. So such heavy metal contamination leads that such heavy metal contamination enters into the plant which is being eaten by humans or other living organisms. So in that way, heavy metal contamination can enter into our human body. Okay, so the last one is an inhalation. The people who are living nearby major industries that causes pollution also affected by the industry's pollutants. Okay, so these are all the routes of exposure. These are major three. These are the only three routes of exposure. One is a contact, another is a ingestion, and another one is a annihilation. Okay, and the health effects of heavy metal contamination. Okay, we just think at a initial or a starting period of stage, we don't think what will happen. It doesn't happen in our body. It may sustain. We may think like that, but after a prolonged period of exposure, the prolonged period of exposure means minimum of 90 days based upon the exposure that you are facing. Okay, so minimum period of 90 days or 45 days. The amount of exposure that is you are being contacted, or the kind of a heavy metal. Okay, for example, if you take a chromium, it will take some period of time, and if you take a lead, it will take some period of time, and as well as the concentration of such heavy metals also plays a major role. So what is a prolonged period means? Okay, so I am for this presentation, I'm going to say just a 45 days. So 45 days is a prolonged period of lead contamination if you are taking. So what will happen to the human body is it will causes a 5 or 6 major problems. So all these major problems are important one to human body to survive in this earth. So the first one is a liver problem. So it will cause hepatitis. Okay, if you are inhaling or ingested, so what will happen is it will affect the liver, and ultimately it will leads to brain damages. That is a neuron issues. It will affect the neuron damage, and it causes neurotransmitters. So what we can say is it's a neurotoxicity. And the second one is a third one is a cardiovascular. That is a heart problem, because the pumping of blood is the major role that we are breathing, and the blood is circulating in the human body. Okay, so the cardiovascular problem also arises, and respiratory issues, the lung problem. Okay, when you are inhaling, the lung problem causes, because we need a major amount of oxygen in the human body. And fifth one is a reproductive disorders. So these are all the what we seen in the past code, that is a neurological disorder, renal damage, cardiovascular complications, or respiratory issues. These are related to your own body. But when it comes to the reproductive disorders, it will affect your future generation because it affects the DNA too. Okay, so it will affect, if it affects the DNA, what will happen is your future generation also being affected. For example, if you got a cancer, what will happen to your future generation? It will lead to a generational disease. So another 2 or 3 generations, that cancer will pass up. So it needs to be controlled, and it's a cancer. The last one is a cancer. Cancer is usually caused by dead cells. Dead cells is being produced by it is fighting against the contamination or any unwanted material that is being entered into the human body. So if a prolonged period of time, the cells in our human body tries to fight out with the unwanted materials enters into the human body. So for a prolonged period, the cells in the human body can't fight. So what will happen is all the cells start to dead. So what will the cells do is it will cause us a cancer. Okay. So these are all the health effects of heavy metal contamination. I hope you people understand what is the effect of heavy metal contamination into our human body. And the second one is the prevention and mitigation strategies. How we are going to prevent and how we are going to control all those things. So the first one is an environmental regulations. So the government bodies should play a major role in controlling all those things. So they needed to strictly amend the environmental regulations to every industry based upon their production, not only based upon their usage of production, but also based upon what kind of industry is that. For example, if you take in India, there are three kinds. One is a green, which kind of green, that a kind of industry that doesn't produce any heavy metal contamination or any contamination to the environment. But if you take an orange kind of industry, it will cause us some contamination, some environmental effects. Okay, but when it comes to the red, it majorly contributes to the environmental problem. Okay, so these kinds of rules and regulations needs to be strictly followed, and that government also follow and make strict actions. So the second one is a safe waste disposal. So industries also have some moral concern, and they should dispose the waste in a safe manner. For example, if you take a radioactive materials, it can't be disposed as it like it needed to be boxed in a tight container with a 3 or 4 inches wall, like that. Then only they needed to dispose the waste. Okay, so even though in the waste they also need to mention what kind of a waste is that. Okay, so that is the moral concern. Okay, food and water safety. So when it is being released into the environment, so soil, water, or air, whatever it is, uh, the industries and the government bodies should know what the level of contamination, the level of pollutants that is being released into the environment. If it isn't if it isn't above the permissible limit, it will affect. Okay, so in that part we needed to think of it. And occupational safety measures. So what we have seen is in the past three is the surrounding area, apart from the industry that we have seen. But when it comes to occupational safety measures, the people who are working in the particular industry also needs to be safe, needs to be in the safer zone. Okay, if you take a nuclear power plant or any kind of a radioactive work, participating in the any kind of a radioactive work, they wear a suit. Okay, so that's a particular suit avoid resist any kind of a radioactive content that is being entered into our human body, because there is a lead chip right out of the chute, so it will absorb all the radioactive material. Okay, so that is an occupational safety measures. That is the people who are employed in the particular industry may also should have the safer kind of a work. Okay, and power public awareness and education at last. So that's what we have seen. That is a public awareness. So the people who are watching this video able to understand what is a heavy metal contamination and how it is affecting our human body and what are the strategies that needs to be implemented to control all these problems. So this is what a public awareness and education. So only through public awareness and education, all these the above four can be implemented, because uh, students are the future generation of the whole world. Okay, so the younger generations, that is an younger generation are the future for the whole world. So the public awareness and education needs to be done on a periodical manner. For example, each 3 months it needs to be done. Okay, so these are all some prevention and mitigation strategies. So I hope everyone understand what I am trying to say in this video, and hope everyone have a free world without any pollutants in the environment. So that's all, folks. Thank you.